Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. What wonderful words to begin a principal feast day of the church, the Feast of Epiphany. Will you pray with me? Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So yes, Epiphany is upon us. If you are not familiar with Episcopal tradition, it may seem like all of this should have gone away days ago. But in fact, today is the last day of the Christmas cycle. And we have the capstone of this event where the Magi, the three wise men, sometimes three kings, not exactly sure who they were. They didn't have calling cards. We know a few things about them, but they show up. They have been on a journey that began far away in a land not of Israel. And we don't know much about them other than they were looking up at the sky. Perhaps astronomers in an ancient sense. Folks who paid very much attention to the courses of the stars and looking for meaning. Or maybe not looking for meaning at all. Maybe just noticing something shifted. They saw a star in its rising that hadn't been there before. They saw a light that signaled to them a shift, not just, the stars they're always looking at changing, but a meaning they assigned to it, that something of significance has happened in the cosmos, in a celestial, perhaps spiritual realm. We better go find out what it is. Now just think of that. No idea really what any of this means, other than something has signaled a shift, and it is of imminent importance. They pack it up, and they start heading west. Go west, young men, go west. That's quite a thing, just to sit and think about. These are individuals not of the nation of Israel. They're from what we would probably call Persia or Arabia. It says, they came from afar and from the east. Well, what's east of Jerusalem? A lot of desert, actually. Different people, different gods, different religion, different customs. Interesting that these three should see a sign that so stirred them. They saw a light that was so compelling to them that they decided to move. They took a journey. I just find that really amazing. It's like Abraham, right? It's like Abraham, like God speaking to Abraham, saying, Abraham, go. I'll let you know when you get there. That's what God says to Abraham. And Abraham goes. Or to Peter and James and John and Andrew, follow me. Whoop, their nets on the ground, and they follow. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Epiphany is about the light of God's love, making a shift in the heavenly realms, in the shift of our lives. After which there's no going back. You can't pretend you didn't see it or experience it. So when you look here at the Nativity, which we always leave up, of course, through Epiphany, and we always have all the figures there. You see, we've got Mary and Joseph. Well, we've got Mary. We got Jesus in the crib there with a little lammy, little foreshadowing of the Easter sacrifice there. And we've got shepherds and the animals. And then over on the other side, we have the three. And how many of you have seen a creche before? Like all of us, right? The kings don't show up the night Jesus was born. It takes a little while for them to get there. But we Christ, the birth of Christ, brings not just shepherds, those who are on the third shift, and poor, and folks who really are kind of at the bottom of the social and food chain, brings them to see the light of God's love. It also brings those who are foreigners, those who have no stake in the game, those who have no narrative to share in. But there is a light so compelling that it draws all the people of the earth. There is something powerfully universal and constant about this light. When Isaiah says, "Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." Not just nice words, but really describing the reality of those shepherds and the reality of those three guys that we hear about in the story, the three men who come having left their life to go on a quest to find out what it's all about. And then when they get there, discovering glory. The other thing that happens when they get there is that they offer gifts. They offer gifts. The gifts of their labors, perhaps, the gifts of worship. They come and they offer and pay him homage. I love that word. We only use that in church. When was the last time you used the word homage? It's not homage with an H, it's homage, I think is how you're supposed to pronounce it. But it's just such a weird word, homage. It means worship and honor. Did you get the little narrative there with Herod, who I tried to read the text so that you really get a sense of how smarmy he is. Oh, why don't you go to Bethlehem? And when you find the child, send me word. I too will come and worship him. Yeah, right. We know in the text that Herod had no intention of worshiping anybody. He was interested in preserving his own kingship, his own power, his own self, the grip that he had over the nation. He had no intention of worshiping any child. He had no participation in the birth of the Messiah. He wanted to hold on to what he knew. You see, it's an interesting thing, this light, as it shines. It reveals a lot of darkness in this story. The hearts of those who would, yes, they'd show up, but they wouldn't be there to offer their gifts and worship. If Herod did show up, he'd show up with a sword in his hand to make sure that the grip that he has on power is what light remained. Fortunately, the story is quite wonderful in that these three fellows, they're dreamers. They have dreams, we find out. And in the dreams, they are led down a different path than the one that they might have taken home. Did you notice that? They had a little dream. It's like there's something in the heavenlies that just kind of touched them while they slept. You need to go this way. It's like divine providence protecting them and guarding them on the way home from this celestial journey. As the season of Epiphany for the next 5-6 weeks or so unfold, we will be hearing more and more texts that are like this story, where the revelation of God's glory, God's love, God's inbreaking or intervention into the world is made known. Great, great texts. Almost my favorite of the whole liturgical year. Because they're all about manifestation, miracle, that can't be explained away. They are simply evidences in the text of where God shows up. And the term is glory and light. We have the first glimpse of it here in the manger scene, where that light shines so compellingly and so bright that it just draws the whole world to it. Does that sound familiar to you? Where else in the gospel text do we hear the light of God drawing all men unto himself, but all people? Any ideas? It's at the cross. It's at the cross. There are texts that describe when Jesus is lifted up from the earth, he will draw all to himself. Look at, that's what's happening here. So from the very beginning of the birth of Christ, we see the glory of resurrection being manifest. God has come to save. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. What wonderful news that is. I want to share with you something one of my Dominican brothers sent me that when I read it, I was like, oh, this is so awesome. This describes what I'm trying to say here about this journey. The journey of the wise men to encounter whatever it was that they saw, this light, this shift in the heavenlies, to bring the best that they had to offer, to worship, to be part of it. And it wasn't an easy journey. That's so important. Many of us follow Christ with an idea that maybe everything is just going to be great. And it's not true. Following Christ is hard. Following the light is hard. This poem I'm going to read is by T.S. Eliot. You might have heard of him. Early 20th century poet. And an Anglican. He wrote lots of great stuff, sort of liturgically sort of minded. But this poem is a reflection, as if you were putting your mind in the mind of those magi moving across the desert, moving on that journey. It's kind of almost like a first-person reflection on what that was like, and then how it changed them. Because see, transformation is what this is all about. It's not just looking at something shiny and pretty and dazzling, and it's the glory of God to take a human heart and change it and fill it with life and goodness and joy. Here are these words. I'll end with this. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted. The summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing, grumbling, and running away, and wanting their liquor and women. And the night fires going out. And the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile, and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door, dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued, and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would but set down. This set down. This. We were led all that way. Were we led all that way for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence, and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death. It's that last line that just gets me. But no longer at ease here in the old dispensation. To see a light shining so brightly, to know a love so vast, so broad, so big. Could you really go back to your old life? Could you really go back and have everything just be ho-hum and the same? That's the point of the poem. It was a hard journey, but once they were there and saw the light of Christ, what could be the same after that? What is there left except a kind of restlessness to see that glory again and again and again? Isn't that the life of following God? Don't we long to see that light? I know I do. I long to see it. Most days I don't. Actually, most days I get glimpses, little glimpses, like pinholes in the day's fabric, where I see a little bit of glory shining through. And every once in a while, wham! The holy 2x4. Glory. Life forevermore. And the courage sort of rises to face yet another day. Another day of plodding with camels to see again that light. That is what Epiphany is about. That God's initiative, God's act, God's love, God, who is, has shined and shines and will shine forevermore. And that light calls you and calls me to do things that are a little crazy. Take a long trip with cranky camels to a place you don't know where you're going, to an end that's uncertain, to bring the very best that you have, and to leave again changed. Isn't that the story of following God on a daily basis? It is. Epiphany is a principal feast day of the church for a reason. It is, for us, that pinnacle of light and transformation, to be reminded as we enter into the new calendar year that God is with us. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have beheld His